The rain had been falling since dawn. Thin silver line slid down the kitchen window while I sat at the small oak table, wrapping my trembling fingers around a cup of tea that had already gone cold. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual, each second echoing through the empty house like footsteps in a tunnel. This house used to be noisy.Laughter.Arguments.Burnt toast smoke alarms. Christmas music in December.My son Daniel racing down the hallway with socks sliding across the wooden floor, while his little sister Emma chased after him. Now Emma was gone. Cancer took her 8 years ago. And Daniel still visited sometimes, mostly when he needed something. I stared at the framed photograph beside the sugar bowl. Emma smiling with her missing front tooth. Daniel in a baseball uniform, arms crossed proudly. Me standing behind them, younger, stronger, certain life would always stay that way. I reached out and touched the frame. Your brother's coming today, I whispered to Emma's picture. Outside. Tires rolled over wet pavement. A black SUV pulled into the driveway. Daniel. I straightened my cardigan quickly and stood, ignoring the ache in my knees.By the time I opened the front door. He was already climbing the porch steps, expensive shoes splashing through. Puddles. Mom, he said with practiced cheerfulness. He kissed my cheek quickly while looking over my shoulder into the house. Behind him stood his wife Vanessa, holding her designer purse beneath an umbrella. Hello Margaret, she said politely. Not warmly. Never warmly. Come in before you both drown, I said. Daniel laughed. Vanessa gave a thin smile. They stepped inside, carrying the cold rain with them. I noticed Daniel immediately checking his watch. Always in a hurry these days. Tea? I asked. No time, Mom, he said. We actually came to talk. Something in my chest tightened. People never say that unless something bad is coming. I led them into the living room. Vanessa sat carefully on the couch like she was afraid the old furniture might stain her clothes. Daniel stayed standing. That worried me more. Mom, he began, rubbing his hands together. You know we've been concerned about you. Concerned. That word again. Ever since I forgot my neighbor's name at church 3 months ago, everyone had become terribly concerned. I'm fine, I said. You left the stove on last week, Vanessa added softly, for 3 minutes. Daniel sighed. You're alone here. I've been alone before. It's dangerous. I looked around the room. The crocheted blanket over the armchair. Harold's old reading glasses still resting beside the lamp even though he'd been dead for 12 years. The piano no one played anymore. Dangerous? No, lonely maybe, but not dangerous. I manage, I replied. Daniel exchanged a glance with Vanessa. The kind of glance people share when they've already made a decision without you. Then he smiled. Too brightly. We found a wonderful place for you. I froze. A place. A nursing community, Vanessa corrected quickly. It's beautiful. There are gardens, Daniel added. Activities, doctors on site. Other people your My age. That phrase landed like dirt on a coffin lid. I'm not moving. Silence. Then Daniel crouched beside my chair. Mom, he said gently, you'll love the new nursing home. The words sounded rehearsed like he'd practiced them in the car. I stared at him. This was the same boy who once cried for an hour when his goldfish died. The same child who slept beside my hospital bed after I got pneumonia. Now he couldn't even say the words without sounding impatient. I don't need a nursing home. It's temporary, Vanessa said. It'll be good for you, Daniel insisted. I looked at both of them. Then I understood. This wasn't about me. It was about the house. 3 bedrooms. A corner lot. Property values rising every year. Daniel had mentioned refinancing his business twice already. My stomach turned cold. You want to sell this place? I led them into the living room. Vanessa sat carefully on the couch like she was afraid the old furniture might stain her clothes. Daniel stayed standing. That worried me more. Mom, he began, rubbing his hands together. You know we've been concerned about you. Concerned. That word again. Ever since I forgot my neighbor's name at church 3 months ago, everyone had become terribly concerned. I'm fine, I said. You left the stove on last week, Vanessa added softly, for 3 minutes. Daniel sighed. You're alone here. I've been alone before. It's dangerous. I looked around the room. The crocheted blanket over the armchair. Harold's old reading glasses still resting beside the lamp even though he'd been dead for 12 years. The piano no one played anymore. Dangerous? No, lonely maybe, but not dangerous. I manage, I replied. Daniel exchanged a glance with Vanessa. The kind of glance people share when they've already made a decision without you. Then he smiled. Too brightly. We found a wonderful place for you. I froze. A place. A nursing community, Vanessa corrected quickly. It's beautiful. There are gardens, Daniel added. Activities, doctors on site. Other people your at.My age. That phrase landed like dirt on a coffin lid. I'm not moving. Silence. Then Daniel crouched beside my chair. Mom, he said gently, you'll love the new nursing home. The words sounded rehearsed, like he'd practiced them in the car. I stared at him. This was the same boy who once cried for an hour when his goldfish died. The same child who slept beside my hospital bed after I got pneumonia. Now he couldn't even say the words without sounding impatient. I don't need a nursing home. It's temporary, Vanessa said. It'll be good for you, Daniel insisted. I looked at both of them. Then I understood. This wasn't about me. It was about the house. 3 bedrooms. A corner lot. Property values rising every year. Daniel had mentioned refinancing his business twice already. My stomach turned cold. You want to sell this place? No. Daniel answered too quickly. Vanessa looked away. That was answer enough. Mom, listen. No, I stood carefully. This is my home. Daniel's jaw tightened. You can't stay here forever. The room went still. Not because of the words, because of the truth hiding underneath them. You're old. You're inconvenient. You're in the way. I raised you in this house, I whispered, and I'm grateful. But now you want me gone. That's not fair. No. I said quietly. It isn't. Vanessa stood. Daniel, maybe we should. No, he snapped. Then he took a breath and forced calm back into his voice. Mom, the paperwork is already started. Paperwork started. Without me. A strange numbness spread through my body. I suddenly felt very old. Not because of my age, because I realized my own son had planned my disappearance while smiling at me across Sunday dinners. When I asked tomorrow.Tomorrow.This casually as rescheduling a dentist appointment. I nodded slowly. Neither of them noticed the tears gathering in my eyes. Fine, I whispered. Daniel looked relieved immediately. That hurt more than anything. He hugged me quickly. Trust me, Mom. This is the best thing. Best for who? But I didn't ask. Because suddenly I was too tired. They stayed another 10 minutes. Vanessa complimented my curtains. Daniel answered a work call. Then they left. The SUV disappeared down the street. And I sat alone in the quiet house until darkness filled every room. That night, I didn't sleep. I walked through the house touching everything. The kitchen doorway where I marked Daniel's height every birthday. The stain in the hallway carpet from Emma's science experiment volcano. Harold's workshop in the garage that still smelled faintly of sawdust and engine oil. 43 years of life lived inside these walls. Reduced to paperwork. Midnight. I opened the old cedar chest in my bedroom. Inside were letters, photographs, and one small metal box. I carried it to the bed and opened it carefully. Cash. More than anyone knew about. Harold had hidden money for emergencies. Never trust banks completely, he used to say. Over the years we'd added to it slowly. By the time he died, there was nearly $40,000 inside. I had never touched it. Until now. I stared at the money for a long time. Then I made a decision. By sunrise my suitcase was packed. Not much. A few clothes. Emma's photograph. Harold's wedding ring. And the metal box. At 9 in the morning, Daniel arrived alone, cheerful again. Too cheerful. You ready? He asked. I nodded. The drive lasted nearly an hour. Rain. Clouds hung low over the highway. Daniel talked the whole time. About the facility. About how modern it was, about how I'd make friends. I barely listened. Instead, I watched the road signs, the exits, the towns, the bus stations. When we finally arrived, the nursing home looked exactly like every place old people fear ending up in. Clean, quiet, hopeless. A smiling receptionist greeted us. The lobby smelled like bleach and overcooked vegetables. Somewhere down the hallway, a television blasted a game show. Nobody was watching. Daniel signed forms while I sat beside a fake plant. No one asked if I wanted to be there. A nurse named Patricia led us upstairs. My mother loved bingo nights, she said brightly. I smiled politely. The room was small. 1 bed, 1 dresser, 1 window overlooking a parking lot. Daniel set my suitcase down. Well? He asked. I looked around. Then at him. He genuinely wanted approval. That was the strangest part. He truly believed this was kindness. It's nice. I lied. Relief flooded his face. See? I told you. Patricia handed me a pamphlet about meal schedules. Daniel checked his watch. Again. I should head out soon, he said. Of course. Work mattered. Meetings mattered. Life mattered. Everything except the woman who gave him life. He hugged me awkwardly. I'll visit Sunday. I nodded. Then he left. Just like that. 30 seconds later, I heard his footsteps disappear down the hallway. I sat on the bed. Alone. Abandoned. A woman across the hall was crying somewhere nearby. Someone coughed violently. A nurse laughed at something, and suddenly I knew one thing with perfect clarity, that if I stayed here, I would die. Not immediately, but slowly, piece by piece, like a photograph fading in sunlight. So that night, I waited. At 11, the hallway quieted. At midnight, Patricia finished her rounds. He 12:30. I opened my suitcase. I changed into comfortable shoes, put on my coat, tucked the cash box into a canvas bag. Then I walked out. No one stopped me. The front desk sat empty. Rain drizzled softly outside. I crossed the parking lot alone beneath the glow of streetlights. Half a mile away, I found the bus station I'd noticed earlier. A tired young clerk looked up as I entered. "Where you headed?" he asked. I opened my purse, looked at the map on the wall, then pointed randomly west. I said. 3 hours later, I was gone. Forever. He least, that's what my son believed. The nursing home called him the next morning. His mother had vanished. Police searched nearby streets. Volunteers checked parks. Nothing. No trace. For 6 months, Daniel heard nothing. And during those 6 months, I became someone else. My name wasn't Margaret anymore. In Arizona, I introduced myself as Maggie. I rented a tiny room above a bakery in a quiet desert town where nobody asked questions. The owner, Elena, was a widow from Mexico with sharp eyes and a kind heart. "You running from something?" she asked my first week there. "Yes," I answered honestly. She nodded like she understood completely. Then she never asked again. I started helping downstairs in the mornings, folding pastry boxes, cleaning tables, pouring coffee for tourists. For the first time in years, people looked at me without pity, without concern, without discussing me like a problem to solve. I wasn't old there. I was useful, needed, alive. Weeks turned into months. I laughed again. I slept peacefully. I watched sunsets paint the desert mountains gold and crimson, and slowly, the ache inside me began to heal. Until one afternoon, everything changed. I was wiping tables when Elena muted the television mounted above the counter. "Maggie," she said carefully, "I think that's you." I looked up. My heart stopped. Daniel stood on the screen. Older. Tired. Desperate. A reporter held a microphone near his face. 6 months ago, Daniel said shakily, "My mother disappeared from a nursing facility. If anyone has information, please." His voice cracked. "We just want to know she's safe." A recent photograph of me appeared on screen. Then another, "missing." The word flashed beneath my face. I sat down slowly. Elena turned off the television. "You okay?" I didn't answer immediately, because for the first time since leaving, I wondered if I'd gone too far. Maybe Daniel deserved punishment. But did he deserve this? Not knowing if I was dead, not sleeping, living with guilt every day. That night I couldn't rest. I kept remembering his face on the news. Not annoyed, not impatient, broken. The next morning I wrote a letter. "Daniel, I am alive. First, you should know that. Second, I need you to understand why I left. You didn't abandon me in a nursing home that day. You abandoned me long before that. Every rushed conversation, every forgotten birthday, every moment you looked at your watch while I was speaking, I became a responsibility instead of a mother. And perhaps you never meant to hurt me. That's the tragedy. You hurt me without even noticing that I needed to disappear so I could remember who I was before becoming someone waiting quietly to inconvenience her family. I forgive you. But forgiveness does not erase consequences. I am finally happy. For now, that is enough. Love, Mom." I mailed it without a return address. 2 weeks later, another letter arrived for me at the bakery. No stamp. Hand delivered. My hand shook opening it. "Mom, I've read your letter at least 100 times. Every line hurts because every line is true. I kept telling myself I was helping you. But maybe I was helping myself. The truth is, after Dad died and Emma got sick, I learned to survive by staying busy. Work became easier than grief, schedules became easier than feelings, and somewhere along the way, I stopped seeing you clearly, not as my mother, not as a person, just another responsibility demanding time I thought I didn't have. When the nursing home called saying you were gone, something inside me broke. For 6 months I believed I'd killed my own mother. I sold the house. Not because I wanted money. Because I couldn't bear walking through it without you. I know sorry is too small a word. But I am sorry. I don't expect forgiveness. I just want one chance to see you again. Daniel. I read the letter 3 times. Then I cried. Not delicate tears. The kind that shake your whole body. Elena hugged me while flour dust covered both our sweaters. "You going back?" she asked. I looked out the bakery window. The desert sun blazed across the empty road. For months, I'd convinced myself I no longer needed my son. But love is strange.It survives anger.It survives disappointment. Sometimes it even survives betrayal. 3 days later, Daniel arrived and I saw him through the window first, standing uncertainly outside the bakery door. Older than before. Not from regret. When he stepped inside, neither of us spoke immediately. Then suddenly he crossed the room and hugged me. Tightly like a frightened child. I'm sorry. He whispered over and over again. I held him while customers quietly pretended not to watch. Finally, I pulled away. You found me. He laughed weakly through tears. You always said I was stubborn. We sat together for hours. Really talked. Maybe for the first time in 20 years. He told me about the panic attacks after I disappeared. The guilt. The nightmares. I told him about loneliness, about becoming invisible after a certain age. About how terrifying it feels when your own child starts discussing your future like you're already gone.T sunset. Daniel looked around the bakery. You seem happy. Here.I am. He nodded slowly. Then came the question hanging between us all day. Will you come home? I smiled sadly. Daniel, this is home now. Pain flickered across his face. But then something unexpected happened. He accepted it. Not happily, not easily. But genuinely. Okay, he whispered. That single word changed everything, because for the first time he was finally listening to what I wanted instead of deciding for me. He stayed a week. Helped Elena repair shelves. Walked with me through the desert evenings. We laughed, we remembered Emma, we cried about Harold. And slowly, painfully, we became family again. Different. Family, but real. Before leaving, Daniel handed me a small envelope. Inside was a photograph.My old house, but something was different. Children played in the yard. Bicycles leaned against the porch. A young couple bought it, he explained. They have 3 kids. I stared at the picture. For a moment, sadness hit me. Then peace followed. Homes are strange things. They hold memories. But they are not the memories themselves. Emma's laughter still existed. Harold's voice still lived inside me. Nothing important had truly been lost. Daniel stood to leave. This time, he didn't check his watch. I'll visit every month, he promised. You don't have to. I know. That mattered. At the door, he paused. Mom? Yes. I really thought you'd love that nursing home. I laughed softly. I know. And that was the saddest part of all. Not cruelty, not greed. Just a son who forgot that growing old doesn't mean a person stops wanting freedom, stops wanting dignity, stops wanting to choose. After he left, I stood outside beneath the glowing Arizona sky. The air smelled like warm bread and desert rain. Cars rolled quietly past. Inside the bakery, Elena called my name. I turned toward the light, toward life, toward the future I was never supposed to have. And somewhere far behind me, a nursing home room sat empty. A bed untouched, a window overlooking a parking lot. Waiting for a woman who disappeared forever. But the truth was I hadn't disappeared. For the first time in years I had finally been found.